All right, guys, welcome back to another Master and Apprentice video / podcast. How you doing today, Ethan?
Not too bad. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good. We'll get right into the video. Today, we're going to be covering the ATTE, or the All-Terrain Tactical Enforcer. We see this multiple times throughout Star Wars. It's a very fan favorite, clone / prequel favorite. So today, we're going to kind of give you a little breakdown, just a little history of this vehicle itself. First thing, it's called the All-Terrain Tactical Enforcer. It's an enforcer. It's an all-terrain. It's a vehicle they use all the time, obviously. It can cost up to about 100,000 credits to make. So not overly expensive, but not overly cheap either. And it can hold probably about 20 passengers at a time. That's not including pilots or the gunners. That's just passengers.
The first appearance was the Attack the Clones, the Star Wars Episode 2. Battle of Geonosis. Once we see the clones come in and save the however many Jedi there were, we see flyovers whenever they Jedi are in the LAAT. We see them shooting down separatist ships trying to escape. Specifically, the ATTs are just on the ground shooting down those ships.
Yep. Like the LAAT or the Republic gunship, if you haven't already seen, right there. That's our other video covering that. It was manufactured by the RHE, or Rutna Heavy Engineering. They did a lot of the vehicles for the Republic, not necessarily like the very big, like the acclimators and those, but a lot of the vehicles, especially like for moving troops and heavy armory, were manufactured by the RHE.
We see them often drop down in the battlefield by LAATs, which was shown, again, in the Attack of the Clones and many, many times in the Clone Wars. This is just one of the common ways. This is a great strategy. We talked about it in the LAAT video. It's really quickly, you can get a heavy unit, drop down on the field, attack fast, and drop 20 clone troopers off. It's very efficient.
Yep. For its actual size of itself, obviously, we have pictures of it. It's got 4 ball turrets in the front, on its chin and its under chin, with 2 of them matching in the back. These are not super explosive, but they do a good job. And then it's big, bad. It has a mass driver gunner on the top, mounted on the top surface. It does need a guy to drive it, I guess, or guide it. So that's why you always see a guy on top. It does a lot of damage. It's a big explosive. It has these giant shells when it shoots, but it does do a lot of damage. It's definitely its a highlight for weaponry. And then it has about 6 legs, which definitely helps it for maneuverability. It can get through a lot of tight spaces compared to, let's say, the AT-AT. So it's good for that. But with those 6 legs, it has 2 extra legs, so its mobility is much slower. So while we see it moving up these hills, these straight up, 90-degree, whatever, it can climb up, but it's much slower than, a lot of these other machineries.
So the body, discluding the legs, is broken up to 3 pieces, 2 armored halves, 1 on each side, and the glass cockpit in the front. It's not a body on legs. It's a body on legs design, but the body's broken up into 2 different parts, which does leave a little weak spot in the middle, but it's not ridiculously exploited in any of the shows. It's very solid all around.
Yep.
Structure and integrity wise.
And then, like I already mentioned, it's carrying. It can carry up to 20 troops. That's just 2 different squads. It needs about 2 pilots. Like we said, like Ethan said, that glass cockpit in the front that you see, it has a pilot and then a guy who's kind of directing him, helping him, a watcher. I think they call it a seeker. And then it needs about 4 gunner pilots in the actual machine. If you've watched Rebels, you've seen there's an interior and it has about all this paneling and machinery on the sides. It's 2 different pilots on each side, so 4 pilots on the inside covering all the gunners, the guns, the turrets, the radars, all that, all the sensors. That's what those guys are all for. And then also the gunner on top to man that driver turret or cannon.
So when the Republic goes into battle with these things, typically it's on a flat plane, almost just not necessarily trench warfare, but it's my army against yours, and that's how they do it. So that's a very efficient vehicle for that. When the Empire came around, that very seldom happened. They needed something that could see through trees, get something more accurate, still heavy, which is why they based the ATTE, at least the armor, a lot off of the ATTE. It does what it needs much more for the Empire than the Republic. That's why they made a different design. That's why they didn't just reuse what they already had in stock. It wouldn't have worked because the rebels they're catching are going to have faster vehicles.
They're very similar but very different. Obviously, it only has 4 legs compared to the 6, but its 4 legs are much taller. So it, like Afton said, its mobility is much higher than the ATTE, but its maneuverability is much lower. So it lacks in gains in those departments. It has a much bigger space. It can carry up to 40 troopers in the AT-AT, whereas the Republic's ATTE can only carry about 20, right? But its turret is a lot. They only have 2 chin turrets in the front for the AT-AT, but it has much heavier armor, right? Whereas the ATTE has more cannons and more offensive weapons, but has less armory and defense because it needs a lot more maneuverability. So it lacks in gains, but they're definitely, very similar. Again, like Afton said, we see it very, very often in the Clone Wars. It's something that was very efficient for when you do a siege or when you're trying to get a mission done. It's heavily armored. It can get through all these tight spaces. So it's very good for, getting your troopers where they need to go. But it's a lot slower. So if you're trying to be quick and precise, let's say like the second battle of Geonosis, it's not going to be as easy to get those where you need to go. But with the LAATs to help it move it around, it happens quicker than you would anticipate. And then, got anything else, Afton?
That's about it. It's a very one-use vehicle where it's not a one-use vehicle. It would work in the Clone Wars, but very seldom in any of the other eras, which is why we don't see it in the in the sequels or the original trilogies very much, because they could have brought it back. They have the design still. They could have made it for the sequels, but it just doesn't apply there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And that's really it for today. If you guys have any questions, let us know down in the comments. This information is just all through Star Wars and the Clone Wars and the movies. So if you guys are interested, I'm sure we can answer your questions. But if you want, just go look through the movies and shows, and your answers will probably be within there. And that's really it for today. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that like, hit that subscribe, comment down. Like I said, if you guys want any questions answered or if you guys got anything to say in general. And I hope you guys like this. And with that, we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.